On the morning of September 22nd, 2006, Reggie Shaw was driving a vehicle on the Valley View Highway in an easterly direction. Another car was following him. It was driven by a fellow, Mr. Kaiserman.
The driver of the vehicle ahead of me had seemed to be distracted most of the way over the mountain, had crossed over the center line on more than one occasion. And I do remember on that particular occasion of the accident that as he crossed over the center line, and you do the math in your head and you see the car coming, you think this is not going to be good.
When Reggie's car crossed the center line and clipped this other vehicle, it caused the vehicle to spin out of control.
My pickup, obviously being much larger than the Saturn, basically picked the Saturn up and carried it off into the ditch.
Mr. Kaiserman's truck impacted the Fafaro vehicle at a high rate of speed. The combined speed of both vehicles would probably be close to 100 miles an hour as they struck. Unfortunately, at that moment, we believe that both Mr. Fafaro and Mr. Odell were killed instantly.
My name is Bart Rinlesbacher. I'm a trooper with the Utah Highway Patrol. I was the investigating officer on the Reggie Shaw crash. When I arrived, the scene was tense. Medics were on scene, obviously trying to take care of the injured that were there. We realized that there were fatalities involved, and it is a sad state when we have to remove the victims from their car and deal with identifying them and notifying their family. It's a traumatic thing for everyone involved. I think the average person upon seeing this would be horrified. I know that in my 15 years in law enforcement, I've dealt with this numerous times, and I still rarely sleep at night when I handle a fatality-involved accident. As we left the crash scene, I had met with Reggie Shaw, and we were on our way to the hospital, and I actually was transporting him there, and I observed that he was texting on his phone, sending and receiving text messages. That's what piqued my interest into checking into his texting.
On my way to work, I was sending and receiving text messages when I drifted across the center line and struck another car. They were both killed on impact.
5 months later, I learned that they were checking into his cell phone records and found out he was texting. And I remembered being so shocked that someone could be so selfish and irresponsible and kill my husband.
All I can think when I think about the fact that he was texting is the fact that it doesn't take a lot of common sense to realize that when you're driving a vehicle at whatever speed, when you're texting, you're taking at least one hand off the wheel and you're taking your eyes off the road. And it doesn't take a lot of common sense to figure out that that's not what you should be doing when you're driving a vehicle.
It's a very dangerous thing to do. Some of the studies that we've seen indicate that driving while texting is very comparable to driving while you're under the influence. And in fact, it's more dangerous in many cases than driving while you're under the influence of alcohol. Studies from the University of Utah show that if you're driving and texting at the same time, you're about as dangerous as somebody who's driving with a blood alcohol content that's twice the legal limit.